Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. So we are going to start with a game as per usual. This game is specifically surrounding you and your work. It's supposed to be a little unique to you, so I hope that you enjoy it. So I know that you have experience with scooter design, which you had started yourself, as well as T1 agency, which you are also working for. I would love to know your opinion on how you would go about scenarios differently in each place. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Beautiful.
That's not part of the game, is it?
It is part of the game. Is that okay?
Oh, okay. How I would go about scenarios in each...
No. Oh, sorry. I'm going to give you different scenarios. Does that make sense? So I'm going to... I was like, yeah, you're right. You will answer that question very soon, though, for a very specific scenario. Okay, so the first one is, well-known brand, Nike, comes to you and says, we want to show up in culture without looking like we're trying too hard.
Okay. So how would I do that with scooter design versus T1?
Correct.
Okay. I'll start with T1 because I think that would be a better client for T1 because T1 is very sport oriented. And I think very, very much has the finger on the pulse of culture. So with T1, we would do an activation. And now I cannot tell you what kind of activation, but I can see that would be an excellent match for T1. For if it was scooter, and they came to me, it's very unlikely. But I would say, let's do some special packaging design and have an influencer do the unboxing thing. That would be more. I would focus it more on the design as opposed to the big experience. So it's a smaller scale.
I completely understand. That feels more down to earth too, and if you're trying to appeal to different culture and stuff like that, so you can you can have a similar idea for different groups as well.
Yeah.
Okay, next scenario. Good job. Okay, so the next one would be you're asked to create a short film with no dialogue for a brand activation.
For a brand activation? Okay. And we don't know what client it is.
No client, and you're willy-nilly. You can go wherever direction you'd like.
Okay. No voiceover, but can there be music?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just no dialogue. Whatever
No
you want.
Okay. I've done that many times before. I've done that as a personal project for Scooter, where there was only music and only the images told the story. One short film that I did for fun, it was called Sunday Afternoon. And for T1, yes, why not? Yeah. I can see how we would do that because we capture a lot of imagery on video. We often don't have voiceover, and you can work it out also with supers, like just have lines of text. But often the images are so strong that they themselves tell a story. So yeah, I can see both scenarios in both places.
Beautiful. Last scenario before we move on to our dire questions. So, a brief lands with no clear KPIs, but they just want to make people feel something. And I know that is so generalized, but what I guess I want to get at is what kind of things do you focus on if you have more creative room and less parameters?
Oh, it really depends on the audience that you're aiming for, and also who's the client, what's the product or the event or the service you're trying to promote. But the goal is to touch the senses, you said. I don't know. It would be really great to have a sensory experience, and we do that a lot. The site is something that we use a lot because it's usually something really big and visual. One thing I would love to tap into would be the smell. We often try to sell that at T1, like as part of the package, like people get excitement from this and they hear the sound and they walk through something or they touch something, but the smell, we always try to sell it. And so far it hasn't happened yet. But I would love to be able to sell this idea, especially with food, because it's very enticing. You walk by a bakery and it's like, it's hard to resist fresh bread. Like you're gonna go in, So that with T1, because now we're still talking about these two places, right?
Yeah.
So with T1, smell, I think would be the one I try to focus on, in addition to other senses. And then with Scooter, maybe taste would be fun. Have some sort of tasting experience, but I find that vision and taste often go together. Like if you eat something that looks very sweet and all of a sudden it's salty when you taste it, it's
Well,
jarring, right? So there might be something interesting in that. Like and again, I'm thinking something smaller, more like a design thing, a tasting thing. I don't know. Still vague, but be fun to match
I
these two.
gave you a vague scenario, so it's fair that you're vague on the answer. But I love what you said about the smell, because I've seen also this initiative specifically, and these are fairly major brands. I'm not sure if I've seen initiatives with like smaller brands, but with billboards having like a scent be put out. Like believe McDonald's had some kind of like fry aroma from
Okay.
like French fries, and I just thought that was so interesting, because there is this association with like craving something with a smell, like you said about the bread. And I
Yes.
think that that's such an interesting tactic that people don't often play on these other senses that people have with marketing, because they might prove to be difficult, but I think sometimes they really are worth it.
And it's something that you will see in stores, certain stores and hotels. It's often like it's often part of the brand to have a certain smell. Like you walk into, I'll say anything, but you walk into Ritz, and
Hmm.
there's a specific Ritz smell, and I'm not talking about the crackers, but Ritz hotel, or like a upscale department store could also have a smell. The only thing I can see as a deterrent would be that there's a lot of allergies. A lot of people, like, especially if the smell is not natural, that could be not a good thing. Uh, but for food, though, you can use the right. Just the smell of baking cookies is amazing. Like people tell you that, right? When you're about to sell your place, bake some cookies, and people will feel more positive when they walk into your house.
I never thought about that as a hack. I mean, that's genius.
Old trick.
I've never tried to sell a house, so I would at this time in my life I have no experience with that, but I will think about
We'll get
it
there.
when the time comes. But that's very smart, and I do like what you said about the deterrent as well, because there are definitely stores that have a very artificial smell that I don't even
Yes.
want to go in sometimes. Like you
Yeah.
pass it and you're just repulsed, and maybe many people are not, but I think that because you have such a strong smell that is not
Yeah.
uniformly accepted, you're losing out on certain customers that maybe
Yes.
are not happy with that.
No, absolutely. Some people are truly allergic, right? It's yeah, you have to be careful.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for participating in my game. This was very fun. I hope that you enjoyed it. And it's really fun to kind of, because you have two experiences, it's really interesting to kind of see the balance between both,
Yes.
because you do very different things in different scenarios. So, one, I would love to know more about that in a less game centered way. So, how does switching between your own practice and agency work kind of shape how you approach creative problems in general?
Oh, so in my own practice, depending on the size of the project, I will either work alone or work with a strategist or a
Mhm.
strategist and a writer. Like it's expendable. The team is expendable. In an organization like T1, we are about 40 to 50 people. So there's a lot of stakeholders, not only inside the company, but also outside, because we do sponsorship. So often in a project, you'll have the decision makers will be inside, like internal, but also external. There might be more than one layer. Where in a more traditional advertising agency, there's one client. There's usually like one marketing manager that you answer to as a client. But in this case, there's I call that the club sandwich of approval. So
Bureaucracy.
you have to hold on to your idea as tight as you can, in the sense, like not in a possessive way, but you try to. I should rephrase this. Like you have to keep your vision pretty strong, because it will go through all of these layers. And if the idea is strong, usually it goes through, because you can sell it to all of these people. And then how do we approach it creatively is similar. It usually starts with strategy. And at T1, it's great because I'm surrounded with amazing strategists. We have Nitya Ramachandran, who's our chief strategy officer, and we have Nat Tubano, who's the vice president strategy, and their team. So we start with strategy. We talk with, basically we don't have a creative department and a strategy department. We have a creative and strategy department in one. So we have this conversation. They do their part, but then we have this conversation, and then we build the creative on based on that information. So informed by the strategy. So it's a very nice luxury to have at T1, to work with these people.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. You have like the best of both worlds, and the idea that when you're working by yourself or just with one other person, you have the opportunity to kind of maybe be more explorative with your creativity, whereas in the other environment, you kind of get to learn from a bunch of different people too, and like modify based off of other experiences.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of you can learn a lot from from many people, especially that I'm fairly new to experience marketing. So I learn more about production. How do you build a giant structure, and that will hold for a couple of days, but not too long, and then you can dismantle it quickly. Like all these technical parts I'm learning about. Also, like practical things like brand ambassadors around the structure. If it's raining or if it's too hot, will they have a place to remove their coat and tuck it under something? Like simple things like that. This is further down the tunnel of the production, but all these things you need to consider as you think of your idea. You can't dream up like, I want a suspended pool. And I mentioned this because we have an idea kind of like that, and then everyone's like, "You're crazy, lady." So,
They bring you down to earth sometimes when you have outlandish, possibly ideas.
well, what we do is that we usually have like degrees of craziness, if you want. Like what's the pie in the sky, and then what's the closer to reality, and then something in between. But we always try to surprise a client, because otherwise, if you give them exactly what they want, then they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not that surprising. So we want to surprise them, surprise and delight. So
Yeah, no. You gotta provide what they want and more to make sure that they're, because that's always under promise, over deliver, as they say it. Yeah. So I'm curious, because since you kind of have this bureaucracy within an agency, which is fairly common, I feel like, where there's like kind of checks and balances for where, maybe there's something that is maybe considerably outrageous but exciting, and then you kind of get brought down to earth from other team members, or like, okay, maybe this isn't possible, we don't know. how do you bring yourself down to earth when you're just working by yourself? Like, what are the checks and balances that you provide for yourself?
It's usually the budget. The budget will, like, right away, I will know that I can't.
You remind yourself while you're working on it.
Okay, there's that much money. Like, there's only so much we can do. The smaller the budget, the more creative you have to get. But it's, yeah, budget is the biggest constraint. And then, of course, this is not fine art. You're actually doing a contract for someone, so you have to consider all the needs, like what they came to you for in the first place. So you're never completely on your own in taking these decisions. So you always have a boss, and if it's not your boss, it's your client or the audience or the people you're talking to. So you always have to basically be responsible and for what you put out there.
Yeah, it's very important to constantly keep budget in mind, I'm sure,
Yes.
especially if you want to have. I think it's really cool that you have, as a part of your process, having like the most extravagant idea first and then kind of like going layers down, because I just think that's a really great place to like, because at first, instead of kind of, for lack of better phrasing, dumbing down your ideas, you're able to kind of see, well, maybe we can make this extravagant idea happen. Let's see if we have the resources to be able to do that. And then obviously you can bring it more down to earth if that's something that's required based off of budget or whatever. But I love starting with the most exciting, like, it would be really cool if we could do this, and then kind of reasoning down to what makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's important to go there and even at times to even present the wildest, the wild card, because yes, might be a possibility.
Yeah.
Like it could be that the client doesn't have the budget, but then when they see the idea, they say,
We
wait
can
a
find
minute, maybe I could find the money for this. Or maybe like if you just scale it down 10%, maybe we can do it, So it's always worth it so that you can push the boundaries and do something more special.
I completely agree. And I think that's a really great process to have, because if you're not thinking about the possibilities outside of the box, then you are never really going. I think it's easier for you to maintain relevancy and popularity and attraction of clients if you're thinking about those outlandish ideas, because those are what really, gain traction. But if you're just thinking about within your comfort zone, then you're never really going to be able to explore or try those options.
Yeah. That's true.
So you've worked with a very wide range of clients, specifically at Scooter. I would love to know if there was any client that kind of changed the way you think. Either it could be about design in general or like about storytelling, anything that you think would, that has just changed your point of view.
I'm going to divert a little bit. I like this question, but I wouldn't say there's one client in particular, but I would say it's more a discipline. There's two disciplines that really changed the way I see things. One was working in editorial, and I did a lot of work with En Route magazine, which is the Air Canada's in-flight magazine. But I've worked with other magazines as well. And editorial work is interesting because it forces you to work in collaboration. And it forces you as well to have a strong vision to make these to make everything happen in a certain budget, because budgets in editorial are small, and also there's a time constraint because you always have a deadline. It's monthly or bi-monthly, and so in editorial was a real good lesson in working in tandem and understanding that words and visuals really are so much stronger together. Like visual is super strong, words are super strong, but together they're the bomb. And so I would say editorial was a real awakening that way. And then I carried that, this sense of collaboration and this desire to work through a vision. And then the other one is filmmaking. Filmmaking is really interesting as well because it's also very much about, although the roles are really well defined, and as a director, you're the boss, you're the person who has the vision. You still completely depend on your team because everyone has a specific role and they're all important. So you need to lead the vision, but leave the room for pride of ownership so that each person is like, hey, you know what? I'm the best gaffer there is. I'm the best DOP there is. And they tell me that it should be shot this way because the sun is coming around or something. And I'm like, okay, you're the pro. Like you have to respect each other. So there's something really beautiful in that. And we're all doing it towards one vision. And so these two disciplines really changed the way I see things because at first I studied in design and there's something very solo about doing design. You sit at your machine or you sit and you start drawing and you're very much in your tower. So these are like it sort of opened the world for me, and now it's after that you can work almost anywhere.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to trust your team. I think that's something that, I mean, if you can't, maybe you need to step back and realize maybe I'm taking too much control, or maybe you need to reevaluate your team. But
Yeah.
there is something so nice about being able to step back and trust. But I think it's also really wonderful to be able to learn from each discipline as well, because there's so many things that you were maybe just doing something solo that you wouldn't consider, and perspective is something that's so important in making something successful, specifically because a lot of times when you're advertising to a group of people, oftentimes those group of people come from different backgrounds and aren't just very specified, and so it accounts for things that you're not looking at sometimes as well, which I think sometimes is missed with marketing, where you see very detrimental consequences at times, or just minor annoyances to the crowd in which you're serving at times as well. So it's great to have a team that you can count on for that.
Oh, yes.
So I would want to segue into talking about some of your early influences, like when you were starting your career, even before you knew that this was the career that you wanted. Is there anything that from the very beginning you feel like you still inherently feel today that has been like an integral part of your creative process, leadership, whatever it may be?
Something from the beginning. I guess I'm trying to think of, because there's many, like, you mean lessons that I learn, or more like something that I go by?
I don't know. I mean, if there's a lesson that you feel like you learned very early on in your career, I'd love to know that. But I mean, the other one is also great.
Yes.
You gave me too many conflicting options. You can share both if you'd like. I would love the answer to either.
Well, one lesson I learned as a young designer, art director, one time there was this project. It was an okay project. It was a poster for a hotel for brunch. And I don't know why. I thought it was a boring project. And I said, I don't have the bandwidth for this. No. I can't handle this. You should give it to a freelancer. And my boss, like, no resistance. My boss said, okay, we'll give it to a freelancer. Give it to a freelancer, and came back and it was so beautiful. And I said, oh my God, I missed out. And it was, I think about that time many times when I work, because what it told me is that any project can be an interesting project. It just depends on what lens you put on it. And I think about that very, very often. I'm like, okay, this sometimes, like I'll be handed a job I don't really want to do. And I think, oh, yeah, you know what? It really depends how you look at it. Like I try to turn the cube, look at it from a different angle. And for sure, there's potential. Like every project has potential.
I really love that lesson. I think it's very, it's interesting because I speak with a lot of people from agencies. Sometimes they're founders, sometimes they're marketers, sometimes they're creatives. And there are some agencies that are within very specific niches, or where it can be like law or like lawn care or like different things like that. And sometimes earlier on when I had the podcast, I thought, does that get a little boring? Like, do you ever run out of ideas of how to creatively showcase this industry? Because it seems like that might become difficult over time. But I think that a lot of people, creatives and marketers specifically, look at a creative project as like a problem to solve. And so there's always a new way of looking at it, which really got me out of my thinking, oh, that must be boring after a while, because it's not to them. Like, it is something that is new every time.
That's very true. That's very true. We were just talking with the team about design, and I was saying that design is really about problem solving. And when you look at it this way, it you can see its value. And whereas advertising is more about the big idea, it's like a moment in time, a given time. But design is really about solving something that will last. And that's interesting. You mentioned that it's problem solving, and for someone who likes to fix things, or like find solutions, it's like a new puzzle every time. But I also think it's funny you were talking about lawnmowers, because when I started as a young art director, I was so excited, and they gave me all the jobs they didn't want to do. So I was making newspaper ads for lawnmowers.
That sounds fun, though. I don't know.
I loved it. I was like, look. And then I would see it on Saturday. I would open the newspaper and show my mom, like, this is my ad,
No, I love that. And I think that it's such a positive way to look at things too, of that it's just a new creative problem, because I think that it can happen where, you get some type of creative block from doing something, or like being within an industry for so long. But I think that, and I just spoke to someone the other day that said something that really, kind of made me think a little bit differently, which was that writer's block or creative block is not necessarily just because of like you ran out of ideas, but it's really just you have to try to find a new perspective or way of looking at something, because it's not necessarily because you're stunted or you have nothing left to give. It's because there's another way.
Yeah, there's another way. And then there are ways of we tend to stay close to the machine, like, oh, I've got so much work and I need to sit for 6 hours and do my work. But if you ever feel blocked, the best way is to walk away from the machine. Yeah. Go around the block, do something that has nothing to do with your work, even though sometimes the pressure keeps you from doing that. But that's probably the best solution, is to go even just around the block once, talk to a stranger. Strangers have a lot to say, and they have amazing stories. And then all of a sudden, the idea will come out of nowhere. Ideas often come out of rêverie moments, like the daydreaming.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of that, and I don't do it enough. But I notice that it comes at the unexpected moment. So it's not necessarily happening when you're sitting down with your mouse in your hand or your pen in your hand.
Yeah, it sucks that you can't schedule your daydreaming, and it comes authentically whenever you're not planning it, unfortunately. But I completely agree with you. I think that because we are all part of the machine, for lack of better phrasing, like you said, that it's kind of difficult to like remove yourself to try to think differently. And I think that, specifically with marketing, which I hear about the most, I feel like the campaigns that really stick with me the most are clearly got influence from like the most obscure thing that I would never relate to marketing. Like I think that marketing should not feel like marketing, and I think that those ideas are out of just coming from the world, like seeing something and being like, oh, wouldn't that be a great way to spin it? And you can't really find that sometimes from just looking at your computer.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's human insight. That's what we call it. When you say it's not coming from it doesn't feel like it's coming from marketing, and it shouldn't. It should come from a human experience. My son was just last night talking to me about the things that we do, and we all do it, but we don't necessarily share it. Like you put something in the microwave and you look at the countdown and you get really ready to open it just before the beep comes on,
Yes,
and
I do
then
that.
yeah, that's,
I
that's
put
human.
things in 1 second longer to not have to hear the beep. I'm like, it's the exact
Yeah,
same amount
that's
of time.
right. Before you hear this annoying noise, and it becomes a game or a challenge, right? And it's not something that's really useful, or that's something that has a lot of meaning, but it's little things like that where you can, and like that, I'm not saying that in particular, but like little weird habits like that everyone, that are in the end very universal. That's
Mhm.
human insight, and human insight is very powerful when you use it in advertising, because everyone can relate to it. Everyone will see the ad and go, oh yeah, that's
I do
me,
that.
like you feel like you're in the joke. You get it because they're talking your language.
No, that's an incredible point. I mean, like, there are so many things that are almost habitual that humans just share, but it's not something that's overtly discussed. And it's even like simple things like that. That's not anything that people are ashamed of discussing. It's just something that
Yeah.
doesn't really come up because a lot of times I think people just think that something is just their own lived experience, but it's actually
Yes.
something that a lot of other people do. And those are such good marketing like and creative ways of going about things because you give people the feeling of that they were singled out, like they were made to be related to, but they don't realize that like this really resonates with a large audience, and it's just something that's so unique about someone's habits or day to day that they don't realize this is something that they share with others.
Yeah, it's true.
I love those. So to wrap up, because we are coming up on time, but I love to end on like a reflective note. So
Yeah.
I would love to ask you, is there someone within your career, like in specifically professionally, that you feel like has really impacted the way that you do your work, like maybe a mentor or something like that, that you'd like to maybe give a shout out?
Oh.
You can name several too, because I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to miss anyone.
Oh my God, so many different people, but for different reasons. But people I've worked with, or people I admire,
It could be
like.
either. Whatever you prefer to talk about, you can do both or whatever, just whatever comes to mind.
Well, I'm a big fan of Stefan Sagmeister, but I don't know him personally. But I saw him at lectures, and we actually talked when I went to some of his lectures and exhibits at the Design Exchange in Toronto. So we exchanged. We had a conversation. I love the way he thinks. I love the way he doesn't try to be trendy, and he's very unique. He has a very singular point of view. So that's like someone sort of outside of my circle, if you want. And then in my circle, oh my God, there's so many people I am deeply admirative of. But the one person that comes to mind is Jane Hope. She was one of the founder of Taxi Advertising and Design, which is now no longer.
Mhm.
It turned into a big conglomerate, but Jane Hope and Paul Lavoie, I work with them, and it felt I had worked at other places before, but when I went to work with them, I really felt like we had the kindred spirit, and learned so much. And one thing she would say when she come in the morning, she would say, "So, are we having fun yet?" Like, and it was so funny because it was almost like so innocent but so true, though. Like, you should have so much fun when you do your work, because this is
That-
creative work. Like, we should be having fun while we're doing it. And I find that when there's joy, making the work, then it shows in the result. So I'm thinking of Jane Hope. No, I don't want to. Then there's like people who I work with, I mentioned her earlier, Nitya Ramachandran. She's got. I'd love to get into her brain and walk around to see how it works, because so smart, so quick, so structured in the way she thinks, and quite funny too, which I love. I love humor. So it's also someone I admire.
Oh, I really appreciate this because I just love hearing the way that people learn from others. I think it's just like so cool and inherent about like a person that, you know, people can. I personally feel that there are people that have impacted me in maybe very large ways that they have no idea. Like and it could be just like something in passing that really changed my worldview or even how I go about my work. And so I love to ask that question because sometimes you don't think about it a lot. And it, like, you know, it practices gratitude and, like, you know, being able to just, you know, be open to learning from each other, but also just enjoying the journey along the way.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I think this is perfect to end here because you ended on a really wholesome note with exactly what Jane Hope said. I think work should be fun. And I really appreciate you joining me today. This was absolutely so much fun. I really love getting to learn a bit about your creative process and also just the way that you think about things. It's really cool to kind of get into your brain and be able to run around a little bit. And I really enjoyed this. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you everyone for listening. We'd be nothing without you. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.